Greetings Internet, it's Monica and today I am here with my koreadathon TBR. Yes, the koreadathon is starting in just a couple of days, which is wild to me because that also means that July is also starting in a couple of days and I do not understand. However, I am so excited that the koreadathon is here. I honestly got a little teary-eyed the other day because just the whole idea that a bunch of people are going out and picking out all these different Korean stories is wild to me and so exciting, and I'm just so excited for this readathon and yeah, and just to celebrate Korean literature and writers with you guys. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into my TBR. So like I shared in my last video, there are 4 challenges in total. And the first one is to read the group book. So the group book that I picked is Wicked Fox by Kat Cho. So this is a brand new release. It came out literally this week, so I'm so excited to have it in my hands and to be able to read it. This is Kat Cho's debut novel, and it is a contemporary paranormal fantasy set in Seoul, and it's her taking all of these Korean mythological creatures, paranormal creatures, and bringing them into this urban fantasy world, and I'm so excited for that. This follows 18-year-old Gumi-young, who is a 9-tailed fox, a Gumio, and she basically has lived her life basically what Gumios do is they, devour the souls of men in order to stay alive. And she ends up saving this boy at the very beginning of the novel from a goblin, and the story sort of takes off from there, because by doing this she sort of betrayed the rules of being a Gumio, and so she has to from my understanding integrate into everyday society. And I'm so intrigued for this. Kat Cho has talked a lot about how she was inspired by a lot of Korean dramas when writing this book, and that's something I love Korean dramas, especially paranormal Korean dramas, so I'm hyped to read this one. And just hearing about her talk about this book and this story and her inspirations for it was just, it made me even more excited to read it. She talked a lot about how a lot of YA paranormal stories take these mythologies, these creatures, and sort of subverts them, and how that's what she wanted to do but with Korean mythology, and that's really cool to me and really exciting. And so yeah, I'm so hyped to pick this one up. I cannot wait. Honestly, it's been a struggle to not just start reading it ever since I got it, but I am holding off until the actual readathon starts, but this is probably the very first thing that I pick up. So excited. Just kicked the tripod. Okay. Whew, sorry, just had to go find my other book because I misplaced it. Anyways, let me make sure I'm in focus. I think I'm in focus. Okay, anyways, the next book on my TBR is Please Look After Mom by Kyung-suk Shin, and this is a very famous Korean novel translated into English from Korean by Chi-young Kim, and this is a story basically about this family and their mom has disappeared, and so the story is about them trying to find their mom, and throughout it also are just learning about their mom and their mom's history. This book is set in Seoul, and I'm so excited to read it because I definitely I feel that every time my mom tells me a story, I feel I am just discovering that she's this totally different person than who I thought. And I feel a lot of kids relate to this, whether or not you're Korean or the child of an immigrant or whatever. But every time she tells me this story, some random story from growing up or her childhood, and I learn about the hardships that she's been through and the lives that she's led, and it's always so inspiring. And heartbreaking sometimes, and so I was sort of skimming this book in the bookstore, and there were a couple parts of it that really stuck out at me and, like, honestly almost made me cry in the bookstore, so I picked it up immediately, and I'm so excited to finally read it. It's a kind of short one. It's like around 200 pages, so I'm hoping that I can get through this during the readathon, and I'm using this one to fulfill 2 challenges, which are to read a book that is translated from Korean, and then also to read a book that was published before 2018, and this book was published back in 2011. Lastly, I have a book via ebook that I'm hoping to read, and that is When My Name Was Kyoko by Linda Sue Park. This book fulfills the challenge of reading a book based in the past, and like I said in my original announcement video, that can either be fiction or nonfiction. For this one I went with fiction, but it's basically historical fiction. This book takes place during the Japanese colonial era within Korea, and it follows a young girl who, during this time period, a lot of Korean history and culture was trying to be silenced and destroyed. During this time period, Koreans were basically forced to take on Japanese names, and so this follows a girl who's being forced to take on this Japanese name and just her life during this time period. I'm so excited to read this book. I have pretty much my entire Korean family, like, going back not like one generation, lived through this time period, and it's not a time period that I know a ton about, especially from like within Korea, so I'm super excited to read this one. This is also quite an older YA novel. It was published back in like 2004, so it's YA middle grade, so I'm really intrigued for that too, because I haven't read like a really, like, not old, I guess 2004 isn't that long ago. I remember actually seeing it when I was like much younger, and I always wanted to pick it up, and I never did. And so, you know, during this, when I was researching books to read for this readathon, I stumbled upon this cover and I was like, oh my gosh, I always wanted to read that when I was a kid. So I'm really excited to pick it up now and to just discover this story. So I'm really excited for that. Really excited for all of these books. I then have 3 additional books that are just sort of like, if I for some reason actually finish 3 books in a week, which would be a lot for me. If I actually do that, I have 3 backups to also pick up, or if I'm just not enjoying one of my reads. So these are 3 very different novels. The first one is Edinburgh by Alexander Chee, and this follows a shy Korean American boy who is a member of his local choir. When he's a child, he like discovers what the choir director, that the choir director abuses the boys within the choir, but he's too ashamed to speak out, and then eventually when the director is arrested, he sort of has to deal with just this history and the abuse that he either witnessed or went through. I'm not 100% sure if he's also a victim of abuse in this, but I've heard amazing things about this story and Alexander Chee in general. He is a very famous Korean American writer, so I'm very excited to have this on my TBR to read either during this readathon or eventually. It's definitely a book that I want to get to. It's also quite short, so it's a good readathon book, I think. Then I have The White Book by Hong Kong, and I'm actually halfway through this one already, and I just sort of stopped because it's grim. It's not the most uplifting of stories. It's also like, it has no plot. It's really just like these existential vignettes that are like looking at grief and stuff, so it's not like, you know, a book that pulls you in, but the writing is quite beautiful, and I feel like I could finish this in an hour or 2. I just have to like finish it. So yeah. But yeah, like I said, it's like an existential novel. It's inspired by the loss of her baby sister, and from when she was when Hong Kong was a child, and she's writing the story sort of about grief, and her sister passed away before she was born, so also like guilt and the whole idea of like, if this baby hadn't died, would I have existed, and things like that. So yeah. And then lastly, I have this one, which I don't know if I'm actually going to get to during this readathon because it's a little bit longer, but I definitely want to read it over the summer because it sounds like a good YA contemporary, and that is Frankly in Love by David Yoon, might be familiar with that last name because David is the husband of Nicola Yoon, who is a very well-loved YA author herself. But this story follows Frank Lee. That's his American name. His Korean name is Sung Min Lee, and no one uses it. And he falls in love with this girl who is white, and his parents want him to date a Korean girl, so he fake dates this Korean girl who's also sort of in a similar situation. And that's the story, and I love fake dating, and I'm very excited for that. It also sounds like it's going to explore a lot of like identity and like what it means to be Korean American. Yeah, so those are the books that I'm hoping to read for Koreadathon. I am so excited to pick these up. Definitely let me know if you make a TBR. Be sure to send it my way, or just let me know what you're planning on reading. I'd love to hear from you guys what you're gonna read, what you're excited to read, if there are any books that you think other people should be reading. Feel free to leave them in the comments down below. And yeah, that's my TBR. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll talk to y'all next time. Bye!